Everybody, video today from Australia. I have not talked a lot about Australia on my channel. I asked Ben and Charles Cost some of their thoughts on ancient Australia when I did my interviews with them. We're going to talk about some very, very ancient history here. Pretty fascinating place. Just learned about this recently. It's way up here. Very ancient rock shelter located right down in this area. This site is called Nawarla Gabarnmung and is located right down here. Here's a look at that general area, the entrance to the rock shelter right there. I knew nothing about this site till I looked into it yesterday and was pretty fascinated. Maybe a reason why this isn't well known is it wasn't discovered until 2006. It says here in June 2006, Ray Weir sighted the shadow of an unusually large rock shelter during a routine aerial survey of the Arnhem Land Plateau in the far north of Australia. Weir, then the Jawan Association Aboriginal Corporation's cultural and environmental manager, asked pilot Chris Morgan to land the helicopter so they could investigate. Walking a short distance, they found themselves in a stunning gallery with well over 1,000 paintings. And can you imagine landing at this place way out in the middle of nowhere, walking into it and just finding all this rock art and columns that were modified by early humans? They must have been stunned here. Here is a look at the roof of the rock shelter. Humans have been living in here, they say, up to 50,000 years. Some of this painting is very, very old. See these natural pillars or columns coming down? Humans have reshaped some of these. They have removed some of these. They painted 36 of them a long, long time ago. This is just a very cool story. Human history goes back a long way in this rock shelter. I will leave this link below. It says, is this the oldest stonemason work in the world? And there is a good look at the rock shelter, a natural formation that people, maybe up to 50,000 years ago, started reshaping. It says, the Nawarla Gabarnmung stone monument in Arnhem Land, Australia, is 50,000 years old. This passage monument, or transformation of a sheltered space that was created by the skilled hands of the Jawan ancestors, is the oldest known example of altering a stone foundation and stone engineering. Charcoal deposits found at the very bottom layers present median age of 49,350 years before present. There is a look at this very, very ancient place. The work completed at Gabarnmung by our ancient engineers may not have required the precise mathematics and masonry to build the Great Pyramid, but still valued math and intelligent knowledge of working stone for a great length of time. Seems there is an amazing amount of history in this place, and it's just layered on top of each other. It says some examples found in Aboriginal rock art are not found anywhere else in the world. There are over 100,000 rock art sites across Australia. The amount in excess has been unknown for years. Nawarla Gabarnmung also contains images of extinct megafauna, a significant example here being the giant flightless bird, Genoris newtoni. And who knows if I said that right? It says taller than a man and thought to have gone extinct on the Australian continent about 45,000 years ago. The Juan ancestors painted and left us a distinctive picture of Genoris on the wall. And there you see it right there. Megafauna gone extinct, they say over 40,000 years ago. But that's an interesting suggestion and a little confusing because they say the oldest rock art here is maybe from about 29,000 years ago. So I don't think maybe some of this has been dated or looked into enough as it should be. Here's another look at some art, and you notice how it's kind of done over earlier art here. They describe some of this as phantasmal and shamanic. But it says in these articles that this artwork is kind of done over earlier artwork, and that artwork is done over even earlier artwork. And then down here at the bottom, it says the spacing here between the roof and the ceiling is 1.5 to 2.5 meters high. But this sediment goes down about 3 feet here, and they have found different levels of ash and charcoal that they have dated also. Red ochre, beeswax, other things, charcoal used to make these paintings. Here's the American Scientist, one of many links I will leave below. One look at part of the ceiling here. These paintings spanned a period of many thousands of years. Here is a look at the outside of the rock shelter. Many paintings pillars painted. This is a rock shelter. That human habitation goes back almost 50,000 years. The paintings maybe started about 28, 29,000 years ago, according to what I have read. Here is kind of a 3D look. It says Nawarla Gabarnmung cannot simply be conceived of as a natural cave in which people lived and painted, but rather must be viewed as a grand architectural monument that was also a complex 3D artistic canvas, one whose shape was altered by people over the course of time. Nawarla Gabarnmang is instructive in showing that once people enter the scene, they become active agents in constructing their landscapes rather than being passive pawns on an environmental stage. The making of rock canvases upon which to create cave art is one dimension of that active agency, and the general principle of actively inscribing one's landscape with architectural and artistic designs applies to all peoples of the world, albeit each in different ways. And there is one drawing, and if these drawings go back almost 30,000 years, some of these drawings, these animals could be extinct. Ancient cave art was spread out across the whole world. Here is a map of some of the more famous cave sites, and this goes back tens of thousands of years, some of these sites. I have talked about ones in France. I have talked about Juxtlahuaca down here, an Olmec site in Mexico. Very cool cave art in that place, but here's a mapping of cave art sites around the world. In the article, it talks about dating these cave art sites. It says the chemistry of absolute dating. Carbon dating is the most commonly used method of absolute dating in cave art research. The basic principle of carbon dating is that radioactive carbon atoms change at a known rate over time. And I'll leave this link below if you want to read this. It's pretty fascinating. It says carbon dating only works up to about 55,000 years ago because by that point the amount of carbon-14 left in a sample is too small to measure reliably. And here is a little look. They show how some of these paintings are overlapping each other, showing different periods of history. There is some more rock art, but things they dated, charcoal, beeswax, and some other compounds in here. Here's another link I will leave below. Nawarla Gabarnmang, a spectacular rock shelter in Arnhem Land in Australia's far north. Questions, assumptions about the nature of design, provoking reflection on the boundaries between the natural and the built. Going down here, there's a look from overhead at the site. There is another rock art feature here. It says, originally the rock pillars were not widely spaced. They were typically about 1 meter apart. We know this because this is how they were found in other parts of the site that people did not frequent. We can also see where missing pillars once stood, for their very tops remain adhered to the ceiling and their bases have survived on the floor in those parts of the sites where pillars are now more widely spaced. In some areas, pillars are now 8 meters apart, where they once stood side by side. So humans have modified this very ancient rock shelter. Here's a PDF I will leave below. It says here the location of different site types within the area. Different sites were used. This one was modified the most right here, the rock shelter. Here's a mapping. There are some fairly recent artworks done in this cave also. It says the artwork and the rock shelter interior generally are dominated by a series of large and dramatic paintings of barramundi, the largest two of which measure 2.4 meters and 2.1 meters in length, respectively. These fish motifs in X-ray style and using 3 to 5 colors are amongst the most recent in the site and are painted in a style prevalent in the northwestern Arnhem Land Plateau. It also says this place might have been abandoned for about 1,000 years, between 500 and 1,500, and then people came in here about 500 years ago and started doing more rock art. It says a wide range of vegetable foods are available from an adjacent marshy swamp. It is well situated as a campsite. In addition, the extensive and roomy interior provides protection from the extremes of heat and wet season rains. Consequently, it is not surprising that it has been used by people for at least the past 48,000 years. Here is one depiction in the rock shelter, and this tells me they were looking at the stars. Same reason the Egyptians portrayed their pharaohs in the posture of Orion. I have talked about Orion being important in many different cultures, but here you see Rigel. It appears his left foot is raised and he is striding, arm up above, left arm out in front. That's exactly what you see on those temples in Egypt and that rock art and that rock shelter. Here is one of the many pieces of the ceiling that fell off, and there's a charcoal drawing on here of some sort. And they dated this to about 28,000 years ago. They say one of the oldest drawings in the cave, if not the oldest, but there certainly could be a lot older based on that drawing of the megafauna bird there. On this original website I showed you, they do have a video attached, so if you want to check that out, it'll be the top link in the video description. Just a very interesting site here. Some of this rock art has faded, some of it is overlapping, but tens, thousands of years, that's not surprising. Here is another look at Nawarla Gabarnmung, and I probably said it a few different ways during this video. But it seems people started camping out here about 50,000 years ago and then noticed this natural area here would be ideal to carve out and put rock art in, an ideal place to hang out. Gives you certain advantages living here. There's another look at the site, but rock art from many periods of history found in this place. That was a fun one to do. Here's the location of the rock shelter, probably different periods of history. It was a lot wetter down here. There are so many different periods in history to talk about, so many different locations. That one goes way back in time, maybe almost 50,000 years. A lot of rock art in there. Pretty interesting story to do. Always learning on this channel. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.